G'day everyone. Today we've got Dom and we are going to be talking about um kind of a big topic, the current state of dog behavior in general. Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? Um yeah, we don't really talk about this too much, surprisingly, considering this is literally our lives. But yeah, Dom, welcome, mate. What's
Hello.
what's brought this topic on?
Well, I think just a general observation of the dogs that I'm seeing in the last couple of years and the prevalence of behavioral, I suppose we call them issues or behavioral
Yeah,
struggles, um, that are not just not simple things, but um, your more run of the mill stuff of, dogs not coming when they're called or showing mild avoidance to something that they're worried about, but it was mild avoidance. Um,
yeah,
Dogs that we're seeing and what we seem to hear about on, maybe some podcasts and things that you and I would listen to and information that we would read is the severity of some of these behavioral struggles, anxiety that then leads to a form of aggressive display, whether or, separation related struggles that dogs are having are becoming more and more prevalent, which was not something that I heard of that much
yeah,
10 years ago or even 5 years ago. It seems to be a really common problem. Um, Dogs that are highly medicated, which
mm,
I do agree with, um, but it's becoming a norm now.
yeah,
Which I'm asking the question of why? Why do we have this huge community of dogs that can't deal with day to day life? They don't have the resilience. They don't have any form of recovery. They don't have a lot of them who don't even have the positive bias enough to be curious of their environment. They're instantly frightened of it. And I kind of think you guys would not survive in the wild. But
yeah,
what that because the ultimate goal of any species is survival, and to survive you must adapt to your environment to survive. We have a population of dogs that just can't do that. And I keep asking why. We've got more information online now that is very good information. Our understanding of a dog's brain and their emotional capacity is better, but the dogs aren't getting any better, in my opinion, from what I'm seeing. And obviously, because that's what we do, as you've said before, dog people don't call us up and go, "Do you know what? My dog's bloody amazing and they cope with life really well. Thank you very much. Goodbye." But there are a shitload more dog trainers. Veterinary behaviourists are booked out for months and months in advance.
yeah,
Why?
yeah. Anecdotally, I think I'm seeing the same. And like you said, no, the population of dogs we see, it's not going well. But I work with puppies, right? And from a young age, like so often I meet the puppy, and it hasn't had a chance to learn too much about the world, but it's already struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always, and this is what I suppose this is as I'm thinking about this and I'm listening to what you're saying. Something that always strikes me now is when I meet a stable dog, right? I'm like, right, your dog's well, right? Like it's like a shock to me. I'm like, oh fuck, that's nice. Oh, this dog's really nice to be around. Oh wow, that's what it's meant to feel like. But there is a lack of resilience. There's been a huge um, amount of dogs that are emotionally unstable. They don't have a any sort of any sort of resilience. They don't have any sort of bounce back ability. They are really skeptical. They're really sensitive. They're just highly stressed. Now, I don't necessarily even want to use the word necessarily anxious because I think that's for recent bias. I think I'm seeing more dogs get misdiagnosed as anxious, and I'm seeing a lot of frustrated dogs getting labeled as anxious.
Mm,
Um, but that still they're not in a good place. That frustration is resulting in kind of explosive behaviors, really low tolerance levels. Um, and yeah, it's still like, yeah, you see these big emotional outbursts because they're just fucking agitated. Um,
mm.
and it is certainly like I'm yeah, busy, really bloody busy. Um, and it's great for business, but shit for dogs. Like it's just shit for dogs.
Well, it's not just shit for dogs, it's also shit for caregivers.
Yeah, yeah,
Like we get we get dogs to enjoy as our companion, to share life as long as we have the privilege of having them.
yeah.
Yet the dogs that we have now, large population of them, both the dog and the caregiver are struggling in some way, shape, or form, and that breeds resentment in the caregiver. I know, as you know, when you have a dog that has a
Yeah.
struggle, you're kind of like, I just really want to enjoy you. I just want to enjoy you. And it takes the joy out of, going for a walk or having someone over or leaving the house or,
It does. It
and
becomes something you have to do, not something you want to do.
yeah. And so when sort of thinking about how is it that we have bred these, oh, I don't, it's hard to even
Do you
think of
reckon?
it, like just these animals that yeah, just can't cope. They just like it's almost like nature said no. Nature would say no. Nature would say
Well,
no.
to play devil's advocate, right? I'm gonna because I think there's so many factors. I can think of three off the top of my head that will be contributing. I
Mm-hmm.
do think, like you just said, the quality of breeding, like the gene pools, are getting shitter and shitter. They're
Mm,
breeding for aesthetics instead of behavior, and we're seeing that over and over again. But the other factors that I think are big are I well, they're not exactly light topics. One of them is the amount of pressure because we work in Sydney, and the amount of pressure that the dogs experience is pretty hardcore. Like if I was to take a dog for a walk in my hometown in England, we might see two dogs. And so the
yeah.
social pressure on those dogs is really low. uh, and they get an opportunity after an experience. So the best way I can kind of explain pressure quickly is if you have an experience, then back home you'd get a chance to relieve and recover, and you'd feel in a good place before you would come into contact with another experience. And so you got the opportunity to decompress after each one. Whereas in Sydney, you get hit, and then you get hit, and then you get hit, and then you get hit, and you get fucking hit, and then you go home, and then, and this is really controversial, I do see people, you said it earlier, there's good information out there. But I think people have put so much emphasis on training and obedience and instead of emotional health and health in general, that people don't really understand that it's not about well-trained dogs. It's about getting behavioral health. And so even when they get home, there's chaos in the house. There's no opportunity for emotional regulation, even after all the events outside the house. People are running around, they're late for work, they're busy, they're stretched, they're time poor, and the dogs are looking around going, this is fucking chaos. And when I leave, it's fucking chaos. And I am genetically not made up for this. And so we've got the perfect cocktail for dogs getting fucked up.
Well, no, and that's right. It's like there is constant social pressure on these dogs. They go outside, people take them to dog parks. They might not like that many dogs, but yet they're thrown into a dog park with, in Sydney with a population of 50,000 people in, a 5K area. And of those 50,000 people, there might be, say, 10,000 of them that have dogs. We put them in these teeny tiny little areas where you go in and there's 25 dogs in a fenced in dog park that's 50 by 50 in square meterage. And you've got these dogs
We're
going, whoa!
we're
So,
over 50% mark in most suburbs in Sydney now for dog ownership.
yeah.
So if you've got
So,
50,000 people, maybe that's not 50,000 households, is it? But still, that's
no, well, I'm
yeah,
talking about these, the massive blocks of unit areas
yeah,
where it's these mini cities and they're all
yeah,
dog friendly, which is great. But most of those units are exceptionally small. They're open plan. The dogs do not have a safe haven to go away to.
yeah.
When we were growing up, yeah, we might have lived in a unit, or if we lived in a house, the dog was outside. And you know what? They were happy.
Mm,
When they wanted to come in, they came in. When they wanted to leave, they could leave. But now we're in these tiny open plan. There's even no rooms for humans to go away and have a safe haven except for the bathroom.
yeah,
So when you think of our dogs, they go out and there's people on the street, dogs on the street, e-bikes, scooters, motorbikes, trucks, wind, other dogs,
yeah.
birds. So there's all of these things like stimulation throwing bang, 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 bang. Then they're in the dog park and then there's dogs in the front of it and there's kids trying to pat them and there's people trying to pat them. Then they go home and as you said, like the owners are running around or the kids are running around and there's people that are knocking in the building upstairs or there's construction over across the road and then the humans finally leave and the dog's like, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do now.
Yeah,
And you get
yeah.
separation distress because the only time they may feel relief is when the human's sitting down on the couch and they go, oh, thank fuck for that. But then you get the dogs that when that changes, they're like, wait, no, no, no. It just, oh my God.
I'm going to go back as well to that owner education thing. I think people are really, really naturally really well intended, but the education has always been based on that old school lifestyle of you got to stimulate your dog, got to exercise your dog. And as soon as they see their dog animated anyway, they just jump to the conclusion that that dog's got energy, we must drain it. And they with the amount of dogs I see that have never learned, or let alone practiced the art of stopping.
Mm.
And when you when you combine the amount of stimulation plus that narrative, because people's narrative absolutely has this influence, like on how they're going to perceive their dog's behavior. Because if you sit down on your sofa and you kind of go, okay, it's the end of the day, but you see your dog is agitated and maybe attention seeking, and you automatically go, I've got to drain some energy here. God, he's still got energy to burn. Even though they may have walked him earlier that day and done all the things with that dog, but he's still got energy to burn. I see people it never occurs to them, oh, I've actually got to teach him how to settle. I've got to teach him how to relax. And so many of the dogs that are in people's homes are working dogs, right? They were bred to keep going. And stopping doesn't come naturally to them. It's a skill. But I go back to that like old school mentality of like, when we were younger, or where I do come from, the dogs had opportunity to decompress. And so it wasn't something they needed to learn to be taught. But it's the same. I see that it's the same in like modern human society in the city. People have to go and practice switching their brain off, right? Like,
Yeah, but I saw this, and you know how much I dislike social media, but someone sent me a video, and it's a comedian. I can't remember his name, but he was talking about how now we have to be taught mindfulness, right? But what he was saying, before mobile phones,
Yeah.
You would wait for the bus. You'd
Yeah.
wait for the bus and you'd think about what you need to think about, or you'd become calm, or you'd sit on the bus and you'd be calm.
Yeah.
You'd sit at home and you'd be calm because that's just what we did. So we're no different to dogs in terms of we have this constant stimulation all the time at our fingertips,
Yeah.
right? I notice myself doing it as well. If I'm just sitting there, I will pick up my phone and then I have to go, what are you doing?
Yeah.
When we're looking at dogs, but also even what you were saying in terms of people's information, yes, they are well intended, but what I'm finding is the information, even though we have more better information out there, people are still listening to the old school stuff. Like
Yeah.
puppy schools are still quite largely about obedience behaviors. No one's like very few, not everyone. I apologize to be generalizing. There are some incredible puppy schools out there who are teaching people to understand the puppy, their developmental stages, what it's going to look like, how do we set them up so they can learn to self-soothe so it's not just constant stimulation. When they do go through the teenage years, what that actually looks like, how the brain's developing, what you need to be prepared for, all of those things. Some people do that. But there is a predominance of a tired dog is a happy dog. No, it's not. No.
The dog's the
I
same
mean,
as a tired human.
exactly. Over exercise the dog. If they're, a highly frustrated dog, you've got a highly frustrated, as you've said before, athlete. Obedience behaviors. Let's just look at that a word. Obedient. Now, what is the purpose of that obedience? And what about the rest of it? When you've asked for that obedient behavior, what about the rest of the day? So we're just looking at that split second of I've asked my dog to sit. Wow, they're a legend of a dog. But they're off ripping the couch and barking at the neighbors and trying to kill the cat. But my dog's obedient because it sits when I tell them. But also the whole, socialization or the lack of understanding of what that is. I'm still seeing there was a couple in Centennial Park doing what they've probably been told with what looks like a Malinois puppy that was probably about 4.5, 5 months. Now, I had a group of dogs. They were walking directly in towards us. One of the dogs that I had ran towards her. She screamed and ran away. Now, she was not ready to be in that park situation. And
No.
then obviously the owners were fretting. I was calling the dog back and she was scared. Now, she experienced that fear around another dog through a very sensitive time. And then one of the owners, oh, she's got to learn. No, well, she did. She did learn. Not what you want her to. And I'm
Yeah.
seeing, like someone was in the park with a 10-week-old puppy, 10 weeks.
Yeah.
They need to be socialized. Well, again,
I
the
yeah.
information.
People, I've said this before, but like nobody knows what socializing is. They all think it's about go and and then they get told go and give your dog as much exposure as possible. But like it is
Here's the 100 things that you need to expose your puppy to.
yeah.
There's a list. There's an
I
alphabet.
remember I wrote one of those lists about 10 years ago and then I ripped it up. Because it's all about quality, not quantity. Like it just goes back to let's put more pressure on this dog. And I think even well-bred dogs would struggle. I do. I mean, I see dogs struggle. Um,
Mm.
you see them deteriorate over time. I had a call with a client earlier. Their dog, 5 years old, um, moved from Singapore to Sydney 2 years ago, and they've just seen the behavior go downhill. Um, not quickly, but over 2 years, this dog has become more and more antisocial. Um, because and there's a combination of factors. When we dig into it, the dog's social needs are not being met. The dog's
Mm.
enrichment needs, is in like, so it's a street dog. It used to have access to outdoor space and just be able to move away from people and observe its environment. And now it's not getting that. When they take the dog out now, they were like thinking. and really innocent, again, of course, really well intended. They wanted to socialize, carry on socializing the dog. So they were taking the dog to these busy dog parks. Um, but all it wanted to do was remove itself and go and lay down in the sun in the park. And then it was getting narky with other dogs. And so just kind of communicating. This is a bunch of unmet needs and misunderstanding of this dog's social, not just social, but preferences. And the dog's now getting shitty because it's just not happy with what it's getting exposed to. And fair enough, it's because it's not getting heard. Um,
So it's a street dog?
it's a mixed breed, but pretty prominent street dog genetics in there, really obvious. Um, and it likes its
Mm.
autonomy. They like their autonomy. They don't like being micromanaged. They love being able to navigate social situations with a bit of freedom. And when there's a cluster of dogs in a fenced park, there's no getting out of this. And so it's learning to have to deal with the other stressed out dogs in the park. And it's getting good at it. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I think even what you're saying there, like there's a difference between some of the dogs we're talking about and that dog. Like that dog genetically would be closer to that what we had 30, 40 years ago in dogs.
yeah,
Genetically used to autonomy and being able to problem solve and put themselves in situations they felt okay in.
mm,
We now have dogs that are 150% reliant on the human to make decisions for them. There is no problem solving ability at all. And whether it is, or well, I think look, as you said before, it's a combination. There's too much social pressure from outside and inside for dogs. They're breeding for aesthetics. They're not breeding for temperament. They're not breeding for a job anymore. Like, doodles, poodles, all of that. They don't know what they're supposed to do. Uh, I think nutritionally, they're just not getting what they need. So, their microbiomes are going this, that, and the other. They've got allergies that we've never heard of such things before. Grass allergies, food allergies, air allergies, just
yeah,
all these things. They're getting, physically dogs, they're starting to get arthritis at the age of 4 and 5. Dogs are having seizures at 2 and 3 and cancers here, there, and everywhere. Like we're just breeding these
yeah.
poor things. Like we're killing them. We're basically killing them. But also when they're really young, they're being desexed at 8, 9, 10 weeks old. And I get why, but that's having long-term effects on them physically and mentally as well. So, it's kind of a,
What it's done though is it's dramatically changed our job description
oh
because
yeah, all you used to have to know is counter conditioning.
yeah, we used to go in and actually go, yeah, okay, look, train the dog, and this is how to train the dog to do X, Y, Z. Stop doing this, do that. Whereas now we can see what's in front of us and we're looking at this dog, and like you said, it's nutritional, it's stress, it's relationship related, it's genetic related, it's enrichment need related. So we go, cool, okay, before we get to the communication part, we've got to factor in, we've got to address all of this, because if you just pick that dog up and try and plonk it in the situation that you intend to be in and just train it to be there, it's going to go belly up really fast. um and it just means that, and the thing is, the education side of it for the public, they're not aware of that. So when we're sitting down with them and explaining that to them, sometimes we get looked at like, "Nah, man, you're mental. This just train the dog to come back, will you please?" Like, yeah,
Well,
that
also
sounds lovely.
the expectation of my previous dog and the dog I grew up with did this,
Yeah, the
which is
world has changed.
look at what's happening with people, right? We've got this huge epidemic of people who are anxious, socially awkward, the obesity issues. Like we're seeing the exact same issue in humans, the exact same issue.
Mm.
children who can't deal with stimulation, and children who can't deal with any problem solving, they get, I'm working with a few schools that now have support dogs because, kids are just becoming closed in a school environment because they go into shutdown because they don't know what to do. So it's not just happening in the dog world. This is also in the human world,
Yeah.
where the world that we've now created is making all species, except for the ones in the wild, the ones that we haven't killed off yet. Oh, it's a positive chat today.
Yeah.
Um,
That was a doom and gloom topic.
it's a well, but it's real, right? This is something that we need people to understand, and really have a look at what they have in front of them. That yes, we would love to be able to come in and say, do you know what, this is A, B, C, D. Bob's your uncle. Thanks very much. We'll see you later. But it's not that clear cut anymore. And we
No.
do have to walk in and go, okay, I have to put my psychology hat on, my nutrition hat on, my trainer's hat on, my behavioral analytic brain on. Like we've got so many hats that we now have to wear. So when people are just like, oh, but I thought I had to just teach the dog to sit, stay, come, and that would be it. It's like, yeah, you can teach the dog new behaviors, but that's not going to get your dog to be able to be put in a situation where your hands free and go, okay, be a thinking, feeling mammal that can problem solve your way out of just walking from the front door to the front gate without losing your mind and
Yeah.
having a panic attack,
Yep.
you know? So, yeah,
Yep. Yep. It's
scary.
in answer to the original question, it's just
Yeah,
not a surprise. It's not a surprise. But it's not a surprise when you look at it through that lens. But I do feel for the unsuspecting public and dogs. Um, yeah, I've heard a lot in the last couple of years. Oh, it's far more complex than I realized. Yeah, sorry, but it is.
it is. And I think it's a shame because, when I was growing up, like I'm a lot older than you, but, dogs could manage themselves. Dogs were dogs.
Yeah,
Uh, and it's great that we brought them more into our homes and all that kind of stuff. But I think I think it's ruined them. It's really ruined them. Um, and we've really done them a disservice. So it is our job to educate ourselves enough, um, so that we know what we're looking for, and also how that we can meet their needs, especially when it comes to getting them to just start to problem solve, like just the tiny little things,
yeah,
and take our hands off for a moment and give them that autonomy and that agency back to go, do you know what, I can do this. Yes, it might just be getting a piece of food out of an egg carton, but watching a dog that doesn't do life well be able to manage their movement and think about something as simple as that is a huge step.
absolutely. Like building. This is something that I've seen a lot. Is like building a dog's confidence in their own independence. Like
Mm,
building their confidence to make a decision, confidence to go take a step forward and go and explore. Building just like problem solve. Problem solving is sometimes well beyond well, what we might deem a problem, but like for them, the problem is like I daren't go forward or I can't do anything without like you kind of coaching me and yeah, just a lack of it's not sometimes they're not being given the agency, but sometimes they just are so stressed that the idea of doing anything on their own is too much. Um,
mm,
and then if they get asked to do it, they don't have the resilience to bounce back from what they thought was a really stressful event. But we're probably looking at going, what's that about?
yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. Anyways, we're going to end there because this went on, and it was really good that it did. But no, thank you very much. That was well, I hope it wasn't all doom and gloom. Hopefully, it just gives people food for thought for actually how to things to consider when caring for your dog.
Yes, food for thought indeed. Lower your expectations. Dogs aren't the same as they used to be. We've created very, very different dogs, and that's, how it is, but we have to adjust our expectations and our lifestyles to accommodate for these dogs.
Yeah, absolutely.